If you're an individual who believes that they put God first in everything that they do, watch this video to the end and you'll probably uncover holes in which you haven't been. But through the grace of God, you will be able to fill those holes and fill in those gaps. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It was something that I noticed about society and the way that people moved, which kind of concerns me. And that is, putting God first. See, a lot of times an individual might look at certain things and say to themselves that, they put God first, and they might wake up in the morning early and start to pray and think that that's all they need to do. And then they go on about their day forgetting about what they do. Some people start their week off by going to church. And then the rest of the week, everything that they talked about in the church and learned in the church seems to fall by the wayside until they get back into the church and they get rebooted. It's funny, too, what I would do often, I would ask individuals, like if I was doing rideshare and I'm picking someone up from church, I would ask them, what did they talk about? And what's really amazing is the number of individuals who could not tell me. And this is right after picking them up from church. It's not passing any judgment. But if you're that individual who can't describe in detail what they talked about in the church after you leaving church, regardless of what type of church you go to, regardless of whatever type of religious institution you go to, if you can't talk about it and in great detail and outline it to the person to the point where a sixth grader can be able to understand it, or even a 5-year-old can understand it, well then at that point in time you need to really reanalyze yourself and what you're actually doing and why you're actually going to church. Some people go for the experience and for the feeling, but are you really putting God first? And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because we all know what the commandment is. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. You think about that. People always talk about putting God first. People do it in their prayers and people do it in many different aspects. But are you really? Society, unfortunately, has infected every individual, all of us, with some sort of sickness, some sort of idea that we're going to be broke and that, we won't be able to survive out of misinformation, and ultimately is wrapped up in the form of fear. This is the reasons why I always tell people to fast or take a break, at least from, the media and the news media, because that is the main avenue in which fear gets pumped into individuals. It gets pumped into individuals on the weather aspect. It gets pumped into individuals on the political aspect. And one thing I've learned throughout, studying the news, growing up as a kid, and learning things from my parents directly, as opposed to just depending on what the school is teaching. One thing I've learned is that people don't really have a true understanding of what's going on in politics. People think that they do, but they really don't. See, the news is only going to give us the information that they want us to have. And if they want to hide information, they're going to continue to hide information, regardless of how much information and technology man has in his hand. And we do have a lot of information in our hand, but we refuse to look at that information. We tend to accept the lie because it's easier for us. It's more comforting for us. But we're putting that lie, we're putting that misinformation, we're putting that fear above God. And it works on the political aspect, where even on a local level, not as far as politics is concerned, but even in the office, where you're afraid to say something or you're afraid to speak out against something that you know is wrong. Even maybe it has something to do with the way that your children are being taught. Maybe it has something to do with an individual in your family. But politics works in all aspects of life. It's unfortunate, though, because we allow the way that you're supposed to do things, quote unquote, we allow the way that you're supposed to move to dictate our movements out of fear of the opinions of other individuals. Yes, it is fear that is that evil spirit that God hates. I truly believe this in my heart. And so what is a way to overcome all of these things? Well, to overcome a lot of these things, it has to do with repentance, right? And when we talk about repentance, we talk about turning away from, the act of the actual sin. If your eye offends you, if the things that you're looking at offend you, don't look at it. If the things that you're hearing offend you, don't look at it. The crazy thing is, a lot of us don't believe that it's offending us. We watch it in entertainment. People watch on the news, and people watch in society when people get shot. People watch accidents happen. And people watch all of these negative things and absorb all of these negative things. And then they wonder why they think negative. And then they expect a positive life. Now, you can't think negative and expect a positive life. So turn away from these things which are offending you, whether you realize they're offending you or not. Well, just because you can take it, just because the news and the media and the program on the television has convinced you to believe that, yeah, you can take it, you can deal with it, it doesn't mean that you actually can. So I got to protect myself, right? I got to protect myself from fear by putting God first. What am I doing by putting God first? I'm putting praise first. It's the best way. So give praise to God. One of my favorite books is the book of Soundz, because it constantly gives praises to God. If you can find an audio version of this book, you could definitely find it on YouTube. It's a great book to read. Now, the reasons why I like this book so much is because it's very soothing. It's very soothing to the mind, to the spirit, to the body. You can play this book as you sleep. And then when you wake up in the morning, you'll definitely feel refreshed. I always recommend that to everybody. And even though this is not specifically on the book list, one of the chapters in the book of Psalms is chapter 136, the 136th Psalm, which is a constant reminder through all of the things that man has done, through all of the negative things and all of the disrespect that man has done to himself, to other man. Man, I say man, I'm speaking mankind, humankind. All of the disrespect that he's done. God's mercy endures forever. Forever. That's longer than any individual could think. A lot of people are thinking on the short term. They're thinking just until the end of the day, because they don't know if they have the next day. Through all of the wrong that you've done in your lifetime, God's mercy still endures forever. And I feel like throughout the course of your day, if you keep the 136th Psalm something with you that you can be able to read, something that with you that you can go back to throughout all of the negative things that you go through in life, it'll definitely be able to help get you focused on the fact that, you know what, the opinions of others or the fear of what people may think about me, which is utterly ridiculous if you really sit back and think about it, that fear, I got to stop putting that as God over me. God is God over me. Put God first. The not only the fear of the opinions of others, but the fear of circumstances that can happen. You know, people are afraid of their circumstances. People look at their circumstances and they make their circumstances bigger than God. How could you? See, if you look at the second verse in the chapter 11 of Exodus, it says something that's quite interesting. It mentions how, you know, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. But people put themselves in the house of bondage when they put these bills that they have to pay, and they put all of these negative situations in front of them, forgetting that they've been in situations like this all their life that God has freed them out of. Where's your faith? I got to make sure that I'm putting my faith in the right direction. I got to make sure that my faith is going to the right direction. And I'm not allowing these fears of what could possibly happen or what could possibly go wrong affect and dictate my movements. Because when you're thinking all of the things that could possibly go wrong in life, you're not putting God first. You're putting the house of bondage first, because you're binding yourself by the things and by the circumstances that are going on in your life. First violation of the first commandment. When black people go around victimizing themselves, talking about things that happened to ancestors that they never met, ancestors that were more stronger than them in most cases, ancestors that would not even associate with them because of they can't even decide whether or not they're a male or a female. And they want to complain about the things that are going on. Well, yeah, you're putting these circumstances in front of God. You're not putting God in front of these circumstances. You're not as strong as your ancestors are. When you have white people right now who want to, you know, pretend as if, you know, they're being victimized because of what people are saying about them. These are the opinions of people. Why would you allow any of these opinions to dictate your movements? Why would you allow these opinions to keep you from saying what you are saying? Yes, I truly believe if you're a black person, you shouldn't have any shame in being black. I believe if you're a white person, you definitely shouldn't have any shame in being white, regardless of what your race is, regardless of what your sex is. You should be comfortable in that skin. Yet society tells you that you shouldn't be comfortable. Society tells women that you should not be comfortable being a female, that you need to be masculine, that you need to be strong. When your real strength lies in your femininity. I think that's a word. Yes, there's nothing toxic about a man that's masculine. Yet you allow society to make you believe so, and then out of fear, you'll put fear as God over God. Oh, God forbid. And then when you do all of these things, who are you really serving? You're serving society. When you allow, you know, toxic feminism to tell women that you're supposed to be more masculine, you're putting the threat of the judgment of individuals in front of God. When a black person is going around talking about the white man is holding them down and the Jewish man is holding them down and the Chinese man is holding them down, putting all of these so-called circumstances above God, when there's been black people that have thrived over 100 years ago. Think about the time frame we're in. This is over 100 years ago. There have been black people that have put God first, that have thrived. You're not putting God first and you're not thriving. Do you guys see where you're going wrong here? You're putting all of these false gods in front of God. You're putting all of these so-called circumstances that you're putting yourself in above God. You're giving praise to the negative situation that you're in as opposed to giving praise to God, as has been done in the 136th Psalm. I love the last Psalms as well. It's like the 150th and the 149th. Like when you read those, oh my goodness, the amount of praise that you give is just amazing. It's just like the book ends on a dramatic rise in a perfect performance. It's just amazing. You got to really listen to the book as opposed to just reading the book. But when you read it and listen to it and read along with it, it's amazing. These are the things that happen when you put God first. When you put God first, all of these so-called circumstances are no longer God. You rise above these circumstances. God has put you in a position to be above these circumstances. How do you worship something that is beneath you? How do you worship the opinions of another person beneath you? Why do you get triggered by a bot saying a racist comment on social media? And how do you put that situation above God? How stupid could anyone be? You got to rise above. That is your solution. You got to give praise to the one who has made you above these situations. Yes, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. If you don't believe that you're above your circumstances, then your circumstances are going to be above you, and your circumstances are going to be God in you. And what you assume the opinions of other individuals are, that's going to be above you as well, because you don't truly know what their opinions are. You just think that people are going to think this way about you, so you allow that thinking to control your movements. God. I didn't even mean to be going on this long. It's been, what, 13 minutes or so? Put God first, truly, instead of just thinking that you do. Because the truth of the matter is, you're really not. You're putting your circumstances above God. You're putting people's opinions above God. The only way to get out of the situation is to actually put God first and to understand that and knowing the truth. And the truth is that God is all. When you start to give all praise to God, these circumstances and these situations and these individuals, whether it's your boss at work, here's the thing, right? If your boss at work, and this is a lesson I wish I learned a long time ago, if your boss at work hates you and doesn't want you to succeed based off the color of your skin, why do you want to work there? If your boss or your circumstances at work is sexist towards women, why do you want to be in that environment? Most people's response is, oh, well, they shouldn't treat people that way. They shouldn't treat black people that way. But you know what they do? And you can't prove that they won't. Why are you wasting your time and going to senators and legislation for BS like that? Why are you not creating your own situation? Stop putting your circumstances above God. Start giving praise to God. Start yielding to God and start allowing him to dictate your results in your life instead of society, instead of man and mankind. Stop victimizing yourself, because every time you victimize yourself, you put in that situation above God in direct violation of the first commandment. Can't say it enough. But that's all I wanted to talk to. Man, 15 minutes, didn't even believe it. But if you have any other questions, concerns, funny stories, anything you'd like to add, feel free to put it in the comments. If you like what I have to say, hit the thumbs up button. If you dislike, that's fine. Type dislike in the comments, even timestamp it the way you dislike it. And, if anybody has any other questions, concerns, funny stories, put it in the comments as well. May everyone have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening.